Good morning and welcome to Morning Coffee with Brigid. I'm Brigid Burke, and today is the 18th of September. We have survived the... Good morning, Alex. We survived the lunar eclipse. It's weird. I didn't know whether I was going to get to see any of it last night, and I did. When I got to bed, the moon is right outside my window. Of course, it was very cloudy. So when I woke up, I go to bed fairly early. I don't think I went to bed too much after 9 last night, but when I woke up, I kept seeing the moon. I think I was starting to see sort of because it was only going to be a partial anyway, but sort of the shadow. And then when I got up the second time, the moon was covered with clouds. So, good morning, Pat. And so it was very much. And good morning, Melissa. So last night was quite interesting. Yesterday, actually, on the whole, was quite interesting for me. Good morning. I saw most of the eclipse. This morning the moon was full again. Okay. Oh, cool. Okay, so where you were, it wasn't as cloudy, so you were actually able to see it. I think we've got clouds pushing up from the south right now. So that's awesome that you got to see most of it. Because it really, people who tend to go to bed, 11 o'clock, closer to midnight, it wasn't that late of an eclipse. I think the whole thing ended by 12:47 or something is what they said. Although I don't remember. I don't remember if you're if you're in Eastern time zone or if you're in Central where you are, Alex. I can't remember. So I don't know if you were an hour behind us, but yeah, it was. I got to see I got to see more of it than I expected. I knew we were supposed to be cloudy. That we have this sort of just about 12 EST. Okay, I think a lot of it was coming in. It was it was I don't know. The eclipse was. It was something I did not expect to see because we do have this storm system that's coming in. And although it's supposed to affect South Jersey more than it's going to affect us, so we may or may not get any rain today. Today is a day for me where I have to focus on not only on the ISFM. Good morning, Joanne. But I not only have to worry about I saw the start that the moon had a hat. Yeah, and you know what? That's what I saw as well. Good morning. Yeah, so I did actually see that first little penumbral. When it was coming in. I think it started at 8:41 Eastern. I think, many of us are in Eastern time zone. And so I saw a little bit of it, and then the next time I got up when it would have been a little bit more, it was cloudy at that point. Great analogy. Yeah, right. Like it was wearing a little black hat, little witch's hat. So it was interesting. But in terms of the whole Piscean element to it, yesterday, I think I'm going to talk a little bit about what happened for me yesterday, but I also like this to be a little interactive because I'm curious to know how this eclipse affected any of you, like if it affected your dreams, or even if it just affected other stuff like weird senses of time, or I don't know, anything yesterday that seemed a little bit whack. to use that to use a technical term. Good morning, Sam. Good morning, Suda. So we're just talking right now. We're having this little session about last night's lunar eclipse in the Pisces full moon, and some of us saw it, or some saw the little, as Pat described it, the little hat on the top, and I think Alex got to see a lot more of it, and maybe some other people here did too. But I'm also interested to know because the energy was really weird yesterday and into last night. And I'm going to talk, like I said, I'm going to talk a little bit about what my experience was. But if you guys had anything, feel free to chime in because I'm interested to know how this energy affected other than just me. It was weird. So yesterday, I'll start by telling you about yesterday, and then I'll be interested. Join in whenever you want to let me know what you. Okay, I'm seeing Mabel again. Mabel's going to be our mascot for this live stream, I think. It's Mabel, for those of us not in our intuitive development class, is a turtle. So all I'm going to say is myself and Jim and okay, I'll let her finish your thought. It was, I think, it was my friend and I went to Sleepy Hollow yesterday, okay? My friend is also, she's involved with her own spiritual stuff as well. And so she's certainly, I think she has quite a strong sense. My mentor, Jeff, profound revelations. Myself and Jim and my mentor, Jeff. Okay, so yeah, so you had that aspect of the Pisces lunar eclipse that actually awakened certain things, where you became aware of certain things. I did as well, and I don't necessarily expect anybody, like if you got some very strongly personal revelations, to tell me what they were, but just curious to know if people were having that kind of things or had kind of crazy dreams or whatever. Because for me, I did have dreams. But as I think I mentioned yesterday, sometimes I also have visions too, like right in front of my face. And that's not something that happens all the time. It's not like I just close my eyes and that happens. It only happens at certain times. And this was, there was a lot of that this time. But when we were in Sleepy Hollow yesterday, we went up to the Sleepy Hollow Cemetery. We always have this thing that we do. I haven't been to there's some cool stuff that goes on around Tarrytown, Sleepy Hollow, New York, and nearby Croton-on-Hudson and stuff. There's a lot of cool stuff, especially at this time of year, because they have like a whole Halloween industry just because of the whole Headless Horseman legend connected with Sleepy Hollow. That Washington Irving started. And of course, there's Washington Irving's house on the other side. I haven't been there in ages either, but I used to go to Sunnyside every year. That used to be, that was the name of his house. I used to go there as well. But we usually, what we do is we stop. There's a great restaurant called Horse Feathers, which is, if anybody who goes to Tarrytown, unless you're a very, very strict vegetarian, although I do think they have some, non-meat options there. It's a fabulous restaurant. I mean, and it's real old school. They serve things on pewter plates. It's really, good morning, Jenny. So it's a really old school kind of a restaurant, and it's very literary. I mean, the shelves are crammed with things. They have all these books, and then they have like Ouija boards, and they have different things. It's just a really cool little restaurant. Okay. And then they're decorated for fall right now. They have all of their stuff around. So Horse Feathers is a great little restaurant. And they're not obscenely priced for New York. And Jenny, the topic of the day, which you can chime in on, is just like what kind of things people experienced with the lunar eclipse, if they want to talk about them. And obviously, some things are very personal. People don't have to talk about them on a public live stream. But if people want to, because I'm just curious to know, I'm just starting to talk about my experiences. And so in Sleepy Hollow yesterday, what we do is we normally stop at Horse Feathers, and then we go down to the cemetery. Now, there's actually two cemeteries that are attached there. There is there's the Old Dutch Burying Ground, which is the setting of the Ichabod Crane Headless Horseman story. That's that Old Dutch church. And that's where like the Van Tassels are buried. All the characters actually that are in that, and they actually, if you go to any of the Sleepy Hollow tourism stuff, you can buy the map of the Old Dutch Burying Ground, which I do have. Actually, I have 2 copies of it somehow. And they'll tell you where all the graves are of all the characters. And I've seen all of them. It's a really old graveyard. But then there's the slightly more modern, because Washington Irving is buried in the more modern section, which would have been like the end of the 1800s, I think, or early 1900s. I can't remember when he died. I feel like he was connected to, like, before and after the Revolution, or before and after the Civil War. But so when you go, there's a cemetery that goes on for over a mile. And that cemetery is huge. And so we always kind of go wandering through this whole cemetery. Okay, so let me just look at some of these. See if I can scroll back in these comments. Okay, Pat, felt the energy change kind of smooth, like a rush of adrenaline when the moon was coming up. I feel it when you think of it. Okay, that's cool. You had a dream of Chapel Rowan, which alluded to this thing I keep going back to. Should I do performing art drag? Yeah. Oh, okay. So you were thinking about whether or not this is connecting you back to doing that kind of work. Interesting. Okay. I'm so tired of my subconscious coming back to this theme. Well, that's it though. But the question is whether or not that means you should go back to that work, or whether there's something else important connected with that work. Ramon sings in drag. Sorry, haha. I actually, the name was familiar to me. As soon as you said that, I was like, okay, yeah, that's where I've heard that before. So the question is whether or not you, so that's something you had done, and then you're kind of like, okay, should I be doing this? Should I do this again? And it's, so the question is whether or not, whether we're literally being called to do something, or if there's something else about that work. And actually, I'm glad you actually brought that up, Sam, because there's an element of what's happening to me right now, even that I want to talk about with regard to that. So Sleepy Hollow, we're in the cemetery, and anybody who saw, I did a post. I think I only did it on Cattonia. I could do it over here too. I think I meant to do it on both, and I only did it on one. And I felt like, okay, I have the whole Azrael thing going on, right? So I felt like he said to me, like, oh yeah, I want to have a conversation in the cemetery. So that's what I sat down to do that. And Paulina had noticed as we were walking through, she says, doesn't this place feel different to you? She says, we go every year. She's like, it feels like she says, like, okay, it's supposed to be sacred ground, and she feels like it's just ground. Like, there's nobody here. That was the way she really felt. She was like, it feels like there's nobody here. Or like everybody is like cleared out. Like nobody's there. And we were trying to kind of figure out why that was. Let me just see what Sud has to say. I felt euphoric. Let's throw away the rules. What's the worst can happen? Upset people? Who cares? My body was working against me pretty much all the night, though. That's pretty typical of eclipses. The body working against you. Because I know, I was very, my body was doing the same thing. I kept like having to get up, and then it was just different things, and then all of a sudden I'd wake up and start coughing, and then it was really kind of annoying after a while. Mine and the aforementioned realized that we pour into so many people who would not cross puddles for us, and the overall realization was just be you, stop giving away personal power. Yeah, and that's interesting because one of the things we've been talking about over this week, and good morning, April. We've been talking about the way in which we don't want to give away our, in the way that we need to differentiate ourselves from, I know we're talking about the collective here, but at the same time within the collective, it doesn't mean that we're all just like, we're all differentiated for a reason. You know, it's, I think the old conception that one of the metaphors would be like, you're all facets on a diamond. We're all part of this same system, but we all kind of have our own individual sparkle, so to speak. It's kind of like the ocean wave one. Thought we'd use a different analogy. Alex is saying, I began to reflect yesterday about these long eclipse cycles. I came to realize yesterday that ultimately over the last 10 years, I'm respectfully a child-free woman. My idea of family has completely changed. Interesting, and I'm glad, and that also is a component of this. I know a lot of the readings we're seeing is about family. In fact, I think April, you did a reading the other day where I watched. I was like, ooh, that's spot on, because you had meant to be like, I think the Six of Cups was the unseen. So yeah, this idea of either the past or of ancestry or something. And Patricia Weston, when she did her eclipse reading, was the same thing. It was like, somehow this is ancestral stuff, family stuff, or even ideas about family. So it's interesting because I feel like, well, that, sorry for cutting your thought on the cemetery. Oh, that's okay. I know, this is good. I like to hear what everybody has to say. So I'll continue the thought about the cemetery. But yeah, you're all bringing up themes. It's like really interesting what's coming up because it seems to kind of jive with. It's good to hear that people are having experiences, that it's not just like, okay, I pulled a bunch of cards and they don't mean anything, which usually isn't the case, but in any case. It's, okay, so while I was sitting there, now, with the Azrael work that I'm doing, one of the things that seems to be happening, and this, of course, if I ever want to do paranormal investigations, this could be a problem, because I feel like he kind of like rides here. If there are actual spirits lingering, okay, and when it comes to cemeteries, I don't know how much spirits actually linger. I feel more it's like they're more impressions, because even if somebody had like a traumatic death or whatever, most of the time I would assume you would want to hang out like where, I don't know, the last important place to you when you were alive. Why would you hang out by your grave? I mean, there are haunted cemeteries, so I guess it does happen. But I don't know, and obviously, like, necromancers and stuff go to cemeteries, so I don't know, there's got to be something there. But the feeling we had was that it was completely devoid. And of course, I have some devices that I use, and I did actually see some figures, like SLS figures and stuff, but it was like, when we stepped in, they like fled, which is unusual. I've not seen that. They like fled. It's like everybody just cleared the room. And some of that might well be because of the Azrael thing. If he's there, it's like, yeah, if they've been avoiding moving on, they don't necessarily want to see the angel of moving them on. So I don't know, or maybe they all got, moved on somehow. But we've been experiencing that a lot. And she told me she had actually experienced that even, when she had visited certain family graves, that like, yeah, the sense that somebody being there, wow, yeah, was not there anymore. And So yeah, so there's so again, I have my notes downstairs about what Azrael said, and I actually do have some voice recording too. And and honestly, at the moment, I'm not remembering everything that he said. Well, because I was sitting in the cemetery, she just decided to take a wander. I was like, okay, I'm going to sit here and connect to Azrael. I had felt this too visiting my ancestors' graves recently. Yeah, it's like people aren't there anymore. It's so weird. Yeah, like the presence that was there has moved. And there are two words that came into my mind. One was time shift. Actually, that's what came into Paulina's mind, sorry. The word ascension came into mind. Now, you know that's one of my least favorite words. But, and I don't know that it means that in a, like, literally, like, woo, everybody went up. Like, I feel like it's like kind of everybody, like, literally just went away. Like we're shifting into this new space, and all of this, some of this energy in some way has been released. Even this kind of imprinted energy seems to be released in some way. And it's very interesting, how that happens. And it's interesting, Alex, that you felt that way too. Yeah, like we're walking into places, and, it was like my friend said, she was like, it's just ground. It's not like a graveyard. It's just a ground with a bunch of like stone things on it. You know, it didn't feel like it was anything else to her. Although the ground itself can have a sacredness that you can feel as well. But almost like people had vacated. So that was really interesting. And my own experiences last night. Okay, I had two things. Okay, having said all of this, when I was last night, I did just, a little kind of full moon thing. I don't always do that, but I kind of felt like I should. I wanted to make some connections before the eclipse. And I felt, but my dreams last night, okay, in very Piscean fashion, they were kind of amorphous. I couldn't quite remember them. So long and thanks for the fish just came into my head. Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, back to Douglas Adams, right? I had, I was having these dreams, and all I can tell you is that they seem to be dreams of like connection. Like there was one side that was filled, and there's another side that's filled. It's like, it's kind of vague, but I just had this strong impression of energies just kind of like moving together. I don't know, I'm making this weird hand gesture, but it's just like, that's kind of the feeling I had. And it was almost like the idea of like the temperance card comes into my head, like the way, and it's almost like, or like there's opposites that have come together, or there's two elements that have somehow integrated. Like there's been some kind of an integration, like that was the feeling. And in my mind, I mean, there's certain images and faces that I see. But I was seeing certain images of, I see certain masculine images, but I also see certain feminine ones too. And I'm seeing like a cup, like the Ace of Cups cup. Like, and again, this is not me, like, it's not a thought. It's literally like a visual, like, photo negative imprint that I see in front of my face. And so I do feel like there has been some kind of release. There is some kind of new beginning. And it's interesting that a lot of people here are having this feeling of realization of, okay, like number one, not having to carry ancestral burdens. Number two, like it's okay to let my authentic self shine. And I feel like that's just what it is. It's not that we're all, because I feel like when we don't do that, even though we are part of a collective, I don't think it's like saying like, like the old school, I'm going to pound my chest and do my, assert my individuality kind of thing in a kind of, competitive and, at its extreme narcissistic kind of a way. It's more of a sense of I'm letting my individuality shine, and that makes everybody else's shine too. I don't know how else to put it, but it's just like, yes, authenticity, right? Like it's like a lot of the stuff that has stopped us from doing that. It's like it's coming back in. The stuff that that we were not able to do before. Now it just seems like it's coming back, and it's just so interesting to feel that. To feel that authenticity and to be able to, because I feel like that's one of the big things that has held us back is the whole thing of ancestral stuff is definitely a big part of this eclipse or what's happening. And the fact that it's coinciding with this feeling that the graveyards are empty. that the places of memorial are now whatever spirit or whatever sense or whatever element of the sacred or whatever memory, whatever, eidolon of that person perhaps even remained in that place seems to be gone. Alex saying, yes, this is blowing my mind because I feel this too. The integration and letting go of ancestral identity. Exactly. And actually to Sam's point, okay, there's a story, like I think I mentioned, I've been kind of prompted to write. Now I am writing another story that is another spin-off of a novel that I do actually want to put out. But this spin-off seems to be directed more by Azrael, and it's one that he's basically said, you're not ever going to publish this one. You're just, I need you to write it. So that gets back to the idea of when we feel called to art or a particular art form, what is it we're actually being called to do? Because it's not necessarily like, okay, to Sam's point, she's saying, am I being called back into doing, drag or trying to do that kind of art again? Maybe. Again, that's something to explore, like to whether or not that's what you're being called to do. Or is it a case of it's not so much that we're being called to do it as, I don't know, or if it's something, or if there's some other way that we are being called to express something creatively just for ourselves. I guess that's the way I want to put it. So I don't know, because I'm sitting here doing, I'm writing this thing, and literally every day, no matter what I'm working on, I could be working on grading student papers. I could be working on, like I said, today's going to be a whole thing about trying to get the ISFM front and center. We are talking about doing a YouTube live stream for that. I'd gotten a call from Max last night because we had to change some things. It's a release. There has definitely been a massive release. And so the question is, so it's almost like we've been freed by that massive release. Yes. And the writing too, it's a release, but I think it's something else in my case. I think it's almost like there's something about that art or something about what it's showing us, that allows that in engaging with our art that allows us to understand something else more deeply. I know that sounds a little vaguish, but I don't know how else to put it. But I almost feel like that by going through the process of writing the story, because this is not so much about, because I've written other stories that feel more like past trauma has been released or something, and that definitely could be a component of it for sure. But I also feel like it's also trying to create something new at the same time, okay, or trying to bring something that's maybe happening on some kind of abstract level into some kind of manifested level that I can connect with. And maybe that other people can connect with as well. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, exactly. Birthing something. Yes, and in my example, it's like creativity does have to look like procreation in the standard sense. It can be creation from my own personal sense. Right, exactly. The procreation is, for women, creativity doesn't necessarily mean creating children. I mean, it can, but it doesn't have to mean that. I keep getting the word testimonial. And that's interesting too, because yeah, I feel like people who are doing the work, it's like there's something that we need to say, and we need to not have other people, tell us that, we're not entitled to our voice or to what we have to say. Remember, I was talking the other day on Katonia about gatekeepers, kind of to the conversation that we had a little bit on your podcast, Joanne. Doesn't have to look. Yeah, I figured you meant doesn't when you said does. So, and the other thing that happened to me last night, okay, was that literally at 3 a.m., I heard, now, okay, a little bit of context for this. I have one Rahani, well, actually I have a couple, but I have maybe 2 or 3 Rahani clients who come to my house. And that's because I know them, I'm comfortable with them, and they understand the limitations of my house. Like they understand. A lot of people freak out by my staircase because I don't have a formal thing, and and there's a lot of ADA issues. I've talked about this, so this is why I don't have an actual full treatment office in my house, because there's just some things that don't lend itself to that. So in any case, but I do have one client that I used to see in Marstown who comes, and she does watch these, so she'll be interested to see this. Okay, so she had heard the last time we did a session, she said she kept seeing a vision of the front of my house, and the doors and windows were all open, which they never are during a Rahani session. I always keep things closed because I'm trying to keep the outside noise and stuff out. And she said there was like an old man wearing like braces, like suspenders was what we would call them in the US, which means something totally different in Britain. But, and kind of like an old guy. And she says he had like these paper bags, and he was like, she's like, there was like a door in front of the one window of my house. And she's like, was there ever a door there? Like he was trying to like either take something out or put something in through this door in the front of the house. Now it's entirely possible that there was. I'm not, maybe back in the 1800s when this house was built, I don't know. Because I'm sure that there was a coal, like, stove, like, right where there's a chimney behind me there, but it was probably down in the downstairs, rather than a formal fireplace, which this house sadly does not have. But I don't know. I wonder, it feels like it's the memory of a person. I don't know if it was the old train keeper who owned this house, because there used to be a train down at the bottom of the hill that's been defunct since, I don't know, I feel like since at least the 70s it's been defunct. Maybe, I don't remember exactly when they stopped using that line. But this used to be the train keeper's house. So I feel like, so we're talking about all these ascensions, but then there's this, for some reason, the activities kind of picked up in this area of people, of these memories of people. And 3 o'clock in the morning exactly, but I heard what she heard. Like, I heard it as, I could hear it, she could see it. She's like, he's rustling paper bags or something out there. Like, he's got something in his hand that he's rustling. And she said, she was thinking, God, he's really loud. And I'm thinking like, oh, this is like a squirrel that's gotten in or something. And that occurred to me as being a possibility. Like, okay, maybe because they keep coming in, they managed to get in through all the holes, and they're trying to steal the insulation in my basement, which I've talked about. They're crazy. But I'm like, at 3 a.m., the squirrels are not awake. Like, I'm watching them kind of run back and forth across the wires now. They're awake now. They're not awake at 3 a.m. And I mean, now you could be mice, but it was really loud. And it was that same exact sound in front of my house. And I was like, mother, go, it's 3 a.m. Shut up. I'm trying to sleep, And it did stop. But that was weird too. I was like, okay, why did that get activated at 3 a.m.? Because it does seem like it's kind of a memory of something. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. So it's weird. We're seeing all this release in some places, but there's some of this stuff going on around my house where it seems like old imprinted stuff seems to, which I've never seen before in the 21 years I've lived here, started like resurfacing in some way. So I don't know, some interesting and weird stuff. And it looks like everybody here has had something. Either it's been an emotional response to something, or it's been a dream response, or it's just been some kind of a revelation. Mostly it seems to be revelations and so forth. And like I said, yeah, I feel like I probably had some stronger dreams, but because I was woken up by that sound. Yep, and I saw shadow figures in the yard last night, this morning in my neighborhood. Yeah, and you know what? Even though my friend didn't see anything in the cemetery, I also saw shadow figures in the cemetery, but I don't think they were of the dead. I think they're, I don't know, whatever else is wandering around here, whatever's trying to come through, whether it be another dimensional being, whether it be what I like to call an intermediary of some kind, which would include angels and other types of beings as well. Yeah, I don't know. I imagine it could be different in different places, but it's almost like we're moving into a new world with new kinds of beings that we're starting to see, and that old memories are kind of either coming up or being released, or if they're still coming up, maybe there's a reason why they're coming up. Like there's something there that's still meant to be seen. So like if Sam having dreams about this performer and being able to saying, okay, connecting that with something in her own life, then it's like, okay, what's the what's the thing? They look like gatekeepers. Yeah, and gatekeepers maybe not in a negative sense. Like there seems like there's something new that's coming in here, and I don't know. It's interesting to see what's going here. Okay, so, my feeling. Okay, I don't know if you're going to continue that thought. It's, yeah, I mean, there's definitely an energy, there's definitely a shift in energy, there definitely seems to be. Okay, I also wanted to mention that I've started I've started here some other mediums and astrologers picking up on the false narrative, referring to the Azrael messages. Yes. Okay. Interesting, because I haven't been following all of the people, but and it's interesting because I just feel like for me, I like to keep my feeling to keep the equilibrium. Okay. No, I see what you're saying, Pat. Yeah. Okay. And that makes a lot of sense too. The Azrael messages. It's interesting, okay, that there's other mediums who are picking up on the same thing. Yeah, the idea that we are, that this is, we're moving into this, like, this era of, like, censorship and being kind of put down, and Azrael's just like, no, that's not what's happening. Lots of things are not good, bad stuff coming, but I don't believe it. Exactly, they're listening to what Azrael calls the Nine. He keeps referring to them as the Nine. And he said something to me the other day about injecting the poison towards the Nine. So I don't know. He's not strictly speaking the angel of death, even though that's the way he's often conceived. But he's putting his angel of death hat on for something. You can't kill angelic beings, but there's something. This is that's the beginning of something that seems to be ending, like that narrative. It's like he's like, yeah, you're gonna be hearing the last of that narrative. So the people who are, and again, the people trying to keep people in fear. The narrative I have been getting is literally, he keeps saying to me, the people who are poisoning you with the idea that everything is bad and everything's scary and you're gonna be censored and you're gonna be put down. And I understand why there's some very realistic things happening where we're worried about that, but he's like, that is not where it's gonna end up. He's like, that's not where it's gonna end up. That narrative is dead. The dead is some of the things that seem to have ascended and gone away. It's dead. It's not. There may be people who are still trying to. It's like if you go to Times Square in New York or like to Leicester Square in England, and the people standing around going, "Repent, the end is near." It's really at the same level of like, about as seriously as you should take it. No offense to those people who I'm sure are going through something really terrible when they run around the square doing stuff like that. But that's not, no. If you're hearing mediums that are getting the message that, whoa, woe betide, be careful. It's Azrael's like, no. I love those people. Well, I don't know why the repent people. Yeah, there's, well, it's interesting. I think the repent people, I'm going to start our reading. I think the repent people are people who have, I don't know, they may have gone through something really, really terrible. And when people go through sometimes their own personal, we'll call it their own quote unquote personal hell, I think that they, oh wow, this is a great reading today. I think that those people are, what they're doing is they're externalizing whatever that torment is. Because remember, as we talk about projection, you see it everywhere. So around you, it's like, oh my God, everything is, everybody's doing terrible and corrupt things. Everybody must repent. At some point, I'd love for you to talk more about deity's spirits asking you to write something. I've got a band of my own spirits. Oh, that's interesting. Sure. Yeah, I can absolutely talk about that. Asking me to write. If you want me, actually, next live stream, I can focus on that because that is an interesting topic. A lot of time, I think I focus on it more over on the Cattonia side of the house because Cattonia Books is my imprint where I publish a lot of my stuff. But we can certainly talk about that process. And you've got your own band of spirits that are trying to, and and the question is. But oftentimes, if they're trying to guide you to something, like what I've been saying to, oh, you're welcome. In fact, I'm going to make a note of it in a minute so tomorrow morning I'm not like, now, what was I supposed to talk about again? I feel like with the whole writing thing I'm doing right now, as I've mentioned, I talked about this probably a week ago at least, and I just feel like I'm saying, okay, this is an interesting story that he's having me write, but I'm like, okay, but if it's not anything, I'm back to the whole, but if it's not anything I'm going to do anything with, knowing that I have, like I said, student papers to grade, I have the grown-up things that I have to do. I'm like, I feel like I'm being pulled away from the grown-up things to do this. So I'm like, am I kind of going into this Piscean space where I'm not grounding myself in what I'm supposed to do? But literally doesn't matter what deck I use, everything keeps coming up with, you gotta write, you gotta write, you gotta write, you gotta write. It's like, it's coming at me from all directions. So I'm like, all right, I don't fully understand why this is a priority right now, but, you know, I'm making time for it, so, but it's interesting. So yeah, I'll talk more about that. But our card right now is turning in, okay? So to the point of everybody about not listening to these other voices. These other voices, again, the voices, that they might be ancestral voices. They might be whatever is not relevant anymore, okay? Definitely, I think a lot of people agree that this eclipse has been about releasing what's not relevant, okay? And that can mean old narratives, old traditions, old things. Yeah, releasing what's not relevant here. And yeah, the internal feeling of which we're aware is the letting go. So the letting go is actually, so this is no longer an external thing that we're thinking we have to do. This is more translating now to what's happening internally. That we're just kind of saying, yeah, you know what, whatever this structure was, it's not one that I need to, it's not one I need to live in anymore, okay? So there's definitely this element of letting go with this card. And also, with the little water droplets here extending out, that, to me, that's also has a lot to do with the experience of stillness. Because when I had my very first experience of that kind of samadhi-like experience, it was like watching somebody drop something in a pond and watching this exact thing happen. And they're saying that's kind of the way things work. It's just like, you know, action occurs and that causes a ripple effect across things. You know, it's like, and it's almost like you're observing that's the way the collective kind of moves together. It's like something disturbs it and it kind of does this. So interesting. But there's this energy of letting go. And again, this outsider script, this letting go of this idea that you are the outsider, that you that you know, you can't be in our club. You know, it's that kind of energy with this card. You know, you're excluded. You're not allowed to be in here with us. And this is saying, yeah, actually, you know, you can drop that tape. Literally, the meaning of this card is drop. I mean, they're calling it a tape nowadays. Well, we could think about it something else, but drop the tape. Drop the tape. You are worthy. Yes, you are part of it. You're part of some club. Okay. And again, there's no need to. Like I said, there's going to be some groups that are going to get what you're doing. I definitely haven't. I'm done with that attitude. People, places, yes, that card energy. Yeah, and actually, you're the first person I thought of with this, just based on what you and Jim were talking about. And yeah, it's like, nope. It's like I have my own club, or I make my own club, right? Oh, I can't be part of yours. I'll make my own. Yeah, you don't have to. We don't have to be, because being part of the club is not being part of the collective. It's basically allowing yourself to compromise yourself for other people's social expectations, and that's not always a valid thing to do. It's not like the social rules that say, okay, you can't steal from your neighbor, you can't kill them, you can't. Obviously, these are kind of basic rules of engagement and social contracts that we engage in. But things about like, oh, you're not allowed to dress this way, you're not allowed to do this, you're not allowed to do that, like that kind of crap can go away, you know? I've always been on the outer fringes and I like that. Well, yeah, and I think probably a lot of us here feel that way. Like we're kind of not trying to, we're not really, you know, we're not playing along with the conventional script. And I don't think it's time to actually do that because there's a certain clarity here. We have the consciousness card there. So much bravado and so little introspection. I'm okay being on the outside of that. Exactly. Well, the term I always used to use was banality. That's the term that I used to use. Like when I saw people, I never followed the script. Like a lot of people I went to high school with and stuff. Not my friend who I hung out with, who I went to high school with actually, and we didn't follow that script. But I remember like they kind of did the thing of like, oh yeah, well I ticked the box, I got the husband, and then I had like the 2.5 kids, and then you know, and they bought the minivan, and they were driving kids to soccer practice, and they were kind of doing, you know, and we bought the little suburban home, and you know, and I focus on all the things that I watch all the TV shows, I watch, you know, all this morning. You know, there's just something about the aura of all of that again, and I mean, if that's a life people are happy with, I'm not knocking it, okay? But for me, I was like, that feels banal. That just feels like that'd be the last thing I want to do, is get involved in that kind of a life. And that's just me. I'm not judging anybody who has a life like that. But for me, I said, I don't want people who say to me, because I've been told, why don't you want that kind of a life? Yes, tried that for a little, done with that completely for now. Yeah. It gives you headaches. I look at it, it's like when I sit in a hospital waiting room. That's what it feels like. Because you ever get stuck in those waiting rooms, or the ones like when you're waiting for your car to be serviced and they have like the crappy little coffee machine and all of the like the pop magazines, and then you're like watching like daytime television, and you're just sitting there and you just feel like if there was a hell, this would be it. It's just, yeah, what the social convention that we're all supposed to follow just feels like so devoid of anything. It's glitzy, and it's not even an attractive glitzy. It's just kind of like, ew. It's kind of like one of those velour paintings, you know? It's like of like Elvis. It's like there's just something. It's not enough. Stuck in a loop of hell. Haha. Yeah, and it's not enough. Yeah, it's not enough, and there's just something about it where I'm just like, I don't understand why anybody thinks like this is awesome, you know? Like yeah, this is totally the kind of life that I want, and I'm like, I don't know. That's, again, my opinion, and probably most people here feel probably roughly the same way. Like, yeah, I think I'd like to imagine a little bit beyond that, because it just feels like something out of one of those horror movies, like Skinamarink or something. Like you're just kind of trapped in this hell loop of, I don't know, this kind of dark hell loop of like cartoons, and you know, I don't know. It was just interesting. 10th portal of hell. Yeah. There's just something about it that just feels like this is supposed to be your fulfillment. And I look at that and I'm thinking, it's nothing. It's funny. The word hollow keeps coming up a lot. It's hollow. Like there doesn't seem to be a lot to it. And yeah. And even less than Stepford Wives, because there's not even a, Stepford Wives, yeah, certainly the submissive thing. But also there's not even a real true glamour to it. It's just, but it's supposed to be the thing, like the ideal thing. Like, you know, ladies, this is what you're all, like, going for. And I'm like, okay, no thanks. I'd rather go dwell on the edges of cemeteries. Like, yeah, hollow perfection. Irma and the housewife, and the housewife rhetoric. Yeah, exactly. And it's almost like people are trying to create that as some kind of an ideal. It's blah. That's a good word. That's actually the best word for it, Pat. It's blah. It's like, I was like, I can't be inspired by that. I'm not like, wow, I can't wait to get into that. Like, it doesn't do anything for me. I'd rather struggle out where I am than live in that, you know? So yeah, we have a consciousness now. What this eclipse is bringing is a clarity, okay? And the outcome is that we can all celebrate, okay? Dancing in the rain, kids, you know? This is a card of celebration. And, you know, as my friend Ellen said, because there's kind of something Maenadic about this card, if you follow Dionysus and the Maenads and that kind of a thing. There's, yeah, this idea of celebration, like just going out and, you know, letting everything loose and just celebrating. And celebrating with the people who want to celebrate with you. Not the people who want to sit there and be all judgy. Yes, way more like, celebrate with my fave ladies. Exactly. It's like, yeah. And so that's just it. I think that's the message here, is not that everything is terrible. Now, I know Mercury is opposing Saturn and Pisces today, so there could be a few wrinkles today, but overall, I don't know. I don't feel the energy of that. I feel like, obviously, you know, the kind of liberation doesn't mean, oh, all of our obstacles are immediately gone and you know, everything's going to just be perfect from now on. But you know what? It's okay, because you know, it's just when you're moving from your own space, or you're moving in that space of, well, I'm not going to worry so much about the future. I'm going to take it as it comes and allow myself to be guided that way. It's just, I think it's just going to be better for people. Now, I got the Fairy Oracle out today because I don't know why. I was looking at it this morning and it was like calling my name. So, okay. So our card that I flipped is, how do you say this? Taitlin the Sylph, I think is the card. Okay. Pretty little fairy card here. And this is one of the cards. I know the meanings of many of them. I don't know the meaning of that one off the top of my head. So let's see what it says. This will be our last little card before we split for the day. What we see here is mental quickness, adaptability, and enthusiasm. Ideas and opinions abound. A few are brilliant, others vary from mediocre to downright silly. Be selective. Mental and psychic abilities are awakening. Independent thinking is in operation. New ideas and new versions of old ideas are creating an exciting, effervescent atmosphere. Avoid excess and extreme. Minds may change often as new ideas and new ways of seeing bubble to the surface. Out of conflict and confusion, resolved by goodwill and clear thinking, a new and better understanding will come. Yeah, so I think that's pretty appropriate. That's our card for today from the fairy deck. So yeah, we're gonna have different ideas, and that is an element of Piscean energy. Actually, it's the Seven of Cups. It's like, wow, there's a lot of new ideas. There's a lot of new possibilities here. You're not going to follow every single one of those paths. You're going to figure out which ones are the ones that work the best. Because we still, in all this energy, we need to ground, because really that's kind of the point. It's not meant to just kind of float above our head. We want to ground it and, plant it into reality and make it into something. So that will require, there's the balancing act, right? So, yeah, so interesting. Thank you guys so much for sharing your lunar eclipse experiences today, because, last night was very, very interesting on that count. And then the whole cemetery experience yesterday was also kind of interesting. The other thing I didn't mention about that, by the way, we got there at I think 2:00 after lunch. And I feel like we had just walked to one part of the cemetery. I was only doing the Azrael thing, I don't feel like it was for that long, maybe 15, 20 minutes. It was just kind of a quick connect. And then I found my friend. And next thing I know, we looked at the clock. It was 20 after 3. I'm like, how did it get to be an hour and 20 minutes? It's like, where did that time go? It was just bizarre, because I was like, I don't feel like we were there more than 30 minutes. So, so time has been another kind of weird component of this as well. So, I don't know. Very, very interesting kind of stuff. So, yeah, thank you so much. This was useful and relatable. Oh, you're welcome. And, so hopefully, this will give, some new ideas to think about. And just remember that, everything that comes up, you don't necessarily have to chase everything that comes up. It's happening a lot to you lately. Yeah, the time thing is weird, and probably Jenny can relate to that too. It's just, oh, you're welcome. And let's see. So what am I going to see? I'll see all of you, hopefully all of you tomorrow. Pat, I know I will see tonight. And I will see, and of course, certainly those of you taking intuitive development, I will have that prepped for Sunday. In fact, that's also on my list to prep. And Sam, I'm going to make a note about talking about spirits and writing tomorrow. You're welcome. Oh, I love listening to you guys. I can talk forever, but it's it'd be better if we had like a Zoom call where everybody could talk. But this is kind of this imperfect setup that we have. I enjoy hearing everybody's experiences, because this is it's not meant to just be the it kind of ends up being the Brigid show, but it's not just about I'm interested in everybody else. I'm kind of just saying it so that other people can say yeah or no or whatever. So so anyway, I hope all of you have a great rest of your day, and we should do that sometime. Yeah, it would be fun. I know we do it in the classes, we get to talk and everything. But it would be cool just to have a little meetup of the morning coffee people. That is a cool idea. Yeah, why not? Because then everybody can kind of see each other who hasn't seen each other. I have Zoom if you want. I do too, actually. I have business Zoom because I'm doing the school, and I have one that lasts. You have one too, probably for the work that you're doing. We can chat. I think most of us have each other's emails, so we could even chat and figure out something to meet up, because that would be really fun. So. So we'll talk about that, and still not wanting to forget what Sam wants me to talk about, so I'm going to write that down right away. All of you have a great rest of your day, and where are we at? Wednesday? We're at hump day. So enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll see everybody soon. Take care.